Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Cut to the Jase. I'm Braden Hazelhurst, editor of basketball.com.au, and of course, joined by the main man himself in Jason Cadee. Jase, the NBL semifinals are here. One game played in each. It's an exciting time in the NBL.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, once we get to this point in the year, it just everything ramps up and everything's a bit more just narrow, right? We don't have all teams playing. We've only got four, so it's funny even coming to do this. Like we're really only talking about four teams because everyone else is playing their off season and who they're going to try and bring in. So I thought both game ones were really, really good standard, and I think as a viewer and just someone as a fan of basketball, we're going to be in for even better game twos now that it's do or die.
Yeah, absolutely. And to talk all about it, we've got the GOAT himself, of course. The man, the MVP award's named after, and Bryce Cotton might chase him down next year and then go past him maybe the year after that. But Andrew Gaze will be joining us today to talk all things NBL finals. But Jace, I wanted to go through something else real quick when we get started. The NBL One North released their top 10 people in statistical categories. And I think you're only top in one, mate, assists. And it's surprising because the games I was there, I don't think I saw you pass the ball in the games I watched.
Come on, mate. That's you. Come on. No, I mean, I don't know what your stats are like. Obviously, you know what you have throughout the years and stuff, but I didn't know what the whole statistical thing was. I actually, to your point, thought I might have had points, but I got pipped by Isaac White. But no, so it's pretty cool how they've done that bit of history in it. I need them to include QBL, the last year of QBL. Well, then I think I'd take the cake in points.
Yeah, absolutely. For those watching who haven't seen it, just to go through it, Jason Cadee is number 2 in points since 2021 behind Isaac White. He's tied top with Kai Statman for most points in a single game with 52. Total 3-pointers made, you are number 4. Total assists, you're number 1 by about 255. Total rebounds, of course, nowhere to be seen. So,
you know the one thing that still gets me, and it's not who I am, but that game I did have 52 in. I had 50 a few times, but that game I had 52 in. I remember it because Anthony Petrie and Jess, they were having a combined birthday party after.
yeah.
So Peach is obviously coaching. Jess was back from college, so it must have been maybe his 40th and her delayed 18th or 19th birthday. And so everyone was there at the game, and Adam Gibson was in town for it. And I remember with about 3.5, 4 minutes to go, Gibbo goes, "Oi, get 60. You've got 52." And I didn't even know. Like, I knew I was playing well, and I was like, "What?" Because the game was close. We were down at three-quarter time, I think. And then at the moment he said that, I then started to try and score, and I don't think I didn't score again.
do, you,
But in my head now, I go back and go, I should have easily had 60 something. I had it with 4 minutes to go.
do you remember who you were playing?
Darwin. And they were good. That was a Matt Flynn coach team, so they could play.
They were good, but let's be honest, defense was optional for that Darwin.
Well, everyone raised about Shawnee Mack. He was one of the guys defending me. And they had a few others at that stage too. I know him. He plays in the East now.
Was Mikhail Malowacz in that team?
He was in that team. Fichetti was there.
Yeah.
So they actually had some guys that could throw at me. I just had one of those nights that was those rare things in basketball where you feel really good, and it's a hula hoop, as our later guest will say.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a kind of a. Oh, first of all, do you remember? I remember being at a game. I think it was a QSL year where it was the modified COVID year, and you played Logan in the semis or quarters. And I think, do you remember that game?
I do remember that.
Yeah, what did you have? 50 something?
Yeah, we often played Logan in quarterfinals, and I assume my bigger games were safe for a Logan game.
I remember that. I think some of our girls, they were giving you shit early on from the sideline.
They were often part of the reason I normally played well too.
That's awesome. It's kind of a perfect segue because I want to get your thoughts on this before we move on to NBL stuff and, of course, talk to Gacy. Bam Adebayo gets 83 points. And I was just speaking to Daz about it off air. I am over these people whinging about it after it's happened. No matter how they get there, 83 is an incredible effort. Probably the funniest one would be the Washington Wizards coach after not playing any defense, first of all, they decided to trap him and triple team him and everything with 2 minutes
30 seconds
left,
to go.
which is ironic. And then he said the last 3 minutes or last quarter or something turned into not basketball. And it's like, mate, well, maybe you've played some defense for the first 3 quarters. It wouldn't have turned into that. But after just talking about what we spoke about, what were your thoughts on seeing that?
I was more disappointed because someone overtook Kobe, and that was who I grew up loving. So that was more for me. And it was probably a shock. Like, if anyone was going to take over Kobe, you probably wanted to be like a Steph or a LeBron or a KD. But it doesn't matter what you play in or where you play. Like, and especially we're talking about the NBA. So Washington might be bad in the NBA, but they're probably better than almost every other team in the world. So to go and have 83, no matter how you have it, no matter how pretty, how ugly it is, it still counts. And so, look, I was probably more disappointed that it overtook Kobe, but to still have 83 points, it's still impressive, no matter how many free throws, what your percentage. At the end of the day, people, when they talk about it, no one talks about Kobe's last game having 60 and how many shots he took. They just talk about he had 60
shots.
They just talk about him having 60. Same with Bam. They're just going to talk about him having 83 in a game. So,
yeah,
look, I didn't like it because it overtook Kobe, but also you got to appreciate anyone who can do that. It's hard to do.
It's the one thing about the NBA that's always weirded me out. They always get precious with little things like that and like a layup at the end of a game. And it's like, you know, maybe if you can play defense throughout the game, take the regular season a little bit more seriously, maybe that doesn't happen. But
that's the other part.
Yeah,
that's more of a sign of I don't even watch the NBA anymore until it gets to the finals.
Yeah,
I pay attention to it, but I just think, and you hear it from a lot of people, like they try for like 2 quarters maybe if they have to. Other than that, it's just a up and down. They just get them do whatever they want.
Absolutely. Well, we'll go into the more detail about game ones of each playoff series, but just to recap, Adelaide get the win over Southeast Melbourne in Adelaide. Bryce goes off for 42 points. That was a really good game, and Southeast Melbourne had some opportunities down the stretch, but couldn't quite get there. And then Sydney escaped the Perth Wildcats at home. Kendrick Davis had a massive second half or massive last 3 quarters. Torrey Craig was huge as well. Christian Doolittle looked like he was on another level. And I'm keen to ask Jase about that because it looked a bit like old school basketball where he's, you know, getting everyone to that mid-range area and just able to rise up and everything. Just a quick summary, mate. What were your thoughts on the first 2 games?
Yeah, as I said before, they were both excellent basketball games. Like, if you're watching that, it's high level. Both teams played pretty well, especially the Sydney Perth game. I thought both teams were excellent. Like, normally there's a team that you go, oh, they didn't deserve to win. I thought both teams deserved to win. I think for me, it's Perth needed to steal that one. I'm now worried for them. Sydney had that slow start and Perth had a chance to steal game 1, which is massive for them. Now they're going to go home and take care of it. But I think we've seen from Sydney a bit of what Torrey Craig is now, what coaching staff has said, hey, your job now is to come in and just be assertive, be aggressive, and we're going to roll off the back of that. And I don't mind that, especially as a guy coming off the bench because he can do so many different things. And then for Perth especially, it's is Winler in or out? Because I think if he's out, it hurts them big time. He's just such an intangibles guy. And then go across to Adelaide and Southeast. I think a lot of people thought Southeast were going to win that game and just keep their form up. But Adelaide, to their credit, they reset. Bryce got some rest, did a step 1 ad, and now he looks great out there.
There we go. There's the plug. Oh, on that, by the way, Daz, you can chip in on this too. I don't know. You know, he brings up step 1, but you know, we're left a step behind at the moment. We got promised a package a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't received anything in the mail yet. But that's another point. So maybe Jase, me and Daz are waiting, mate. We got promised on air. It's on recording, and we are yet to receive.
You have some things you have to fulfill in your end before you get it.
Shit. All right. We'll go into a couple more quick points before we talk to Gazy. First of all, big news in the Brisbane Bullets world with former Sydney Kings coach Will Weaver appointed not only head coach, but president of basketball operations. And I'll have an opinion piece on this that'll come out by the time this gets released, which you've seen, Jase. And I think this is a massive step for the Bullets perhaps the biggest thing, I think, is the president of basketball operations. He gets control over all that sort of stuff. And after years and years of having these leaders, apart from Mal Watts, who um, gets criticized by Bullets fans and everything, but doesn't have much to do with the basketball decisions, they have a leader there who's accountable and he's present in Brisbane to fans as well. So I think that's massive. What were your thoughts on the appointment?
Same. I think it's great. I mean, I've been around Will and the Boomers stuff. He was an assistant with Andre Lamanis and Longley and Capehorn. And first of all, I love him as a guy. Like, he was a great guy. Just someone you really enjoyed to be around. He loved the Australian way of it. Like, he was almost like, he calls himself an Aussie, even though he's an American. Like, he just loves Australia and how they go about it. And I think for me, this is the best decision they've made in a long time, because they're bringing in someone who gets basketball, he gets Australia. He's someone that you can build. Like, he's not going to flick that place around in a year. Let's be honest. It would be an extraordinary effort. But now they've got some building blocks to really go places and get better and better over the next few years with the right person making the right basketball decisions.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think not only the fact he'll keep people accountable, he'll obviously be, all over the coaching details side. But being able to attract players and the right type of players too, I think is going to be huge. And, I'd expect some changes with the staff and everything as well, with Will coming in and having control all over that. So that'd be interesting to see how that goes. Because me and you have spoken, especially since I've, done that piece, and probably the two poorest decisions the Bullets have made was Lamanis going without a fight, and then Sammy Mack being the GM, not being able to make decisions, and then departing as well. So this is probably something, if they can get it right and right this ship over the next couple of seasons, that sort of rights the wrongs of all the 10 past years, because it's been pretty mediocre across that past decade, Jace.
I think sometimes we get in the NBL, because it chops and changes so much, we start making decisions year to year rather than over the course of 2 to 3 years, right? And I think if you're trying to treat it like a yo-yo, it can get really hard, because basically you're saying, if it works, we're in. If it doesn't work, we're out. Where I think at least now with Will and what Brisbane can do is, he's in place. Now we put someone in place where we can hold him accountable to saying, this is your world. How do you go with it? Do you do a good job? Do you do a bad job? Like, at the end of the day, players get held accountable for how they play. Like, everyone should be held accountable for what they do, but sometimes when the thing, like, even if you go back to Sam McKinnon, he was the GM of basketball, but he wasn't making basketball decisions. He was suggesting ideas, where I'm like, at least let him make decisions, and if he don't make poor decisions, blame him for it, because you say this was your job. So I think at least now I look at it and go, Will Weaver, I think he's got the credentials to make the right decisions. He's got the credentials to coach the right group. Go and do your thing. And I think as long as there's budget behind it, like, even we go back to when Dre's last ever press conference, I sat in it. And he basically said, until this place spends money that puts them not on top, but in that higher bracket, I don't know how we're going to get further off, because we can't make decisions on the fly. And I'd like to think now with Will in there, they're going to have weapons at their disposal to go and make plays and make things happen.
Well, I think the change in that has come this past season. I think they've used the money to be in that sort of higher tier. But now it's just, we've spoken about it previously. It's about having the right people to make those decisions, so you're making the most of that money or investment in the team. And I think they've got that now with Will. And I'm, to be honest, as a Brisbane person, I grew up an Adelaide 36ers fan, actually, because I spent a lot of my formative years in Adelaide. I've actually got a soft spot for Brisbane, and I really hope they get this right. And I'm really happy for the Brisbane fans with this move, because they deserve some success. And we all know when Brisbane teams are winning and it's rolling, there's rarely a better place to be in the country. So hopefully they can continue to get it right eventually, Jason.
Yeah, the people, man. Like, when I left Sydney, when I played in Sydney, because I was from here, it was the first place I felt like I had a following, almost. Like, you notice things when you run out and get introduced. You notice when cheers are a little louder for certain people. We see it all the time. And I was never the star, but I always felt like my role was crucial in certain groups. And in Sydney, I just felt like I had this following. And then when I left it, I was like, oh, I probably won't have that now, like going to Brisbane. But I was so wrong. Like in Brisbane, I felt like I just had a lot of people, and I felt like I connected well with the Brisbane people. And I truly loved, like, I thought I was going to retire a Bullet. Like, that's just how I thought it was going to play. It didn't play out that way, but Brisbane, the community, is something that I've always held in. And it's almost like, it's funny how you think, oh, Sydney's home, but almost that Southeast Queensland corridor has become my second home, if not my home. And it's because of the people. And I think for me, you're spot on. Like, I want to see the club do well, sure, but I want to see the people have something they can follow and connect with. And I feel like that connection hasn't been there for a few years. Letting go of some people have hurt that connection. And we talk about playing on the Gold Coast, not getting a crowd. I remember when I played there, we played a game at the Carrara and we sold it out. We played Melbourne United and it was sold out because there was a connection to the community. And I think that's one thing they need to get back. And it starts with bringing in the right people and getting players that the fans can connect with. And then if wins come, we've seen that place support losing basketball. So imagine when wins come.
Well, I spoke to Andrew Bogut last year about it when he was doing some work for us, and he spoke about his time in South East Queensland. Obviously, he used to live in Goldie before he accepted the assistant coaching position with the Sydney Kings. And he said he was amazed that he'd come to Nissan Arena and Sydney would beat him by 40, and there was a sold-out crowd the next game at Nissan Arena. And I know at times it doesn't look like that at the entertainment centre. Just keep in mind for people in other states, when you judge Brisbane crowds, a lot of their midweek games are at 5:30 local time, or 6:30, and it's a hard place to get. It's one of the hardest places to get to.
They asked us a few times if we wanted to take some games to the entertainment centre because we were getting 5.5 or whatever Nissan sold out. Hey, we might take some of and we all were like, no, because we liked the atmosphere Nissan created, and none of us wanted to drive out to the entertainment centre because it's hard, especially on Friday nights.
Yeah, there are some other factors, if people are wondering, that led to them going back to the entertainment centre, some things with Nissan Arena and different stuff. But yeah, hopefully that they can get back to that because, when it's pumping, it is an exciting place to be. Good week for the Bullets too, of course. Announced Angel Reese as an investor for their WNBL bid as well. Now, from what I'm hearing, won't happen this coming season, but that's a massive move to try and get that Southeast Queensland team in the league as the 10th team for the following season, of course, with Tassie coming in, for 26-27. So some exciting things happening around the Bullets and some reason for Bullets fans to be excited. Just quickly before we move on to our chat with Jase, the Opals at the World Cup qualifiers, 2-0 so far, beat Argentina, took care of them pretty comfortably, and then a comeback win to beat Japan. So they're 2-0, massive fourth quarter. I think they hit 4 threes in a row when they trailed by 10 points in the fourth quarter in that one. So a massive win by the Opals. And I'll do a bit of a piece comparing them and the Team USA 12 as well, because I think maybe apart from Beck Allen, I think this is probably the Opals' best 12, and be really exciting to see this group go forward to the World Cup later this year. But that's all we have time for in this segment. Now it's time for our chat with NBL legend Andrew Jase. Welcome back to Cut to the Jase. It's time for our special guest interview for the day. And it's none other than the GOAT himself, Andrew Jase, just making sure that door's shut. Jase, welcome to Cut to the Jase, mate.
That was the engine room. And I know how many people watch this. And, with AI and looking in there and coming up with all the secrets. So just had to quickly shut it to make sure we've got everything secure.
I thought he was taken off before the first question.
No.
But
No.
Anyway, welcome, mate. First of all, I've got to start the chat with the controversy surrounding the MVP awards. Now, you've obviously, voiced your opinion about making them public and different things, but Bryce winning, but KD wasn't too happy with it. What were your thoughts around that whole situation a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I think that Bryce is a worthy winner. Sometimes when we have these conversations, it was like, someone got ripped off. No one got ripped off in this situation. I think he's a worthy winner. He's a superstar of the competition. But I do believe that as far as the integrity, it does mean so much to these players. And that's one of the great thing about it. They might say, listen, I'm not worried about it. Big's arse, they are worried about it. And if they're in contention, they want to win. So I think because they are so passionate about it, I just think it would be helpful if those that were voting declared their votes, and we made it public, because clearly I think it was always going to be a line ball with the MVP. But how in anyone can not have KD or Nathan Sovey in your All-Star 5? I mean, that's just ridiculous. And it was so dramatic. And it's not always like that from year to year. You don't have three clear standouts, but this time you did. So either two people didn't have him in the first team, put him in the second team, or either one person didn't have him in either team, which is preposterous. So I think it would eliminate some of the debate about. You still would have the debate. It wouldn't eliminate the debate, but it would make it much more transparent. And I think that brings more credibility to the award.
Drew, with the voting system, it used to be back, I don't know when it changed, but it used to be the round by round, like after every game, coaches.
Yep.
Do you think now we should go back to a similar one where it is round by round?
Yeah. Well, it was throughout my time. And I think that there's no right or wrong way, because you could make the argument that someone could have just an unbelievable season, clearly the MVP, but they get hurt, they miss 4 or 5 games and might get pipped to the post. I don't think there's any foolproof way to do it. But I guess culturally, coming from Victoria, growing up in the AFL, and the most prestigious award is the Brownlow that's done on a game-by-game basis, it probably resonates with me a little bit more. But, you know, like I said, you're never going to find a foolproof way to do it. But given what we see around the world and the load management, which a lot of players and clubs go through, this actually might try to add it as an extra incentive to make sure that the load management doesn't come into play in Australia, because these other awards, you're going to be jeopardizing yourself with some of those awards.
I know you love the event being called the Gazies. You absolutely love it. It was your suggestion. You brought it up to them saying this is what it should be called.
I hate it. It's the most awkward night ever. I really, really find it awkward sitting there and going through it all. But I am honoured, though. I am 100% honoured, and I have great respect for it. But no, I do not love it at all.
What are your thoughts as you sit here today? Like, a Bryce could potentially catch you next year.
Yeah.
Is it something you think about now? Obviously, your career was a long time ago, but you're so involved in basketball and everything we do. What are your thoughts on it? And if he does catch you, if he does beat you?
No, if it's not Bryce, it's someone else. We look at history, it's eventually going to happen. And I would say I don't know Bryce real well. I know him, how you going, brief chats, that's about it. But he seems like a high-quality guy, a guy that's done tremendous things for the league here. It's a shame that we haven't seen him in an Australian jersey because of all the imports that have come out here that you think would have perhaps represented us the way we want to represent. He certainly would fall in that category. So I have absolutely no problems. And if in 3 years' time he's got 8 of those suckers and Larry knocks on the door and said, "Hey, sorry, mate, it's just a sheer numbers game. See you later. We're gonna give you the third place MVP or something," I'd have no problems with that whatsoever.
So we'll keep the Gazies as the name of the night, but we might change the MVP award to the Bryce Cotton Award. Is that what you're saying?
Whatever they want to do, I'm 100% supportive, because I'm 60. I'm on the downhill of my existence. So and throughout my time, I've received way more accolades and recognition than I deserve. So I'm in credit that much that they could come and shit on that trophy, and I would still be saying I've had a great time, and I've had way more recognitions that I deserve.
Just quickly on that, Drewy, I know you've voiced your opinion about how much you'd like to see Bryce in the green and gold. Going forward to the next Olympics, obviously you're allowed one naturalised player, and Matisse has been that in the past. Would you have him in that Olympic team? If he spoke to us and he said he's more open to it now than he was previously, would you have him in that side?
Well, I think it comes down to your makeup of your team and the personnel. I see Paddy Mills just signed in Tenerife in Spain. Whether or not he still has ambitions it's going to be tough because I think he's 38. By the time the Olympics rolls around, it's history shows that it's tough to be playing at that age, playing at that level. So I think it depends on the balance of your team and the coaches that do a deep dive in all that. But for me personally, on what I think where the most need is going to be, and that is perimeter shooting, perimeter scoring, then I would probably at this point in time lean more towards Bryce than I would Matisse. Now, you want them both. They both got some tremendous assets that they would bring to the team. But yeah, right now, when I think of specific need, when I think of Giddy, I think of Dyson Daniels, and I think of other players that are going to be spending big minutes on the floor, those guys need shooters around him. Now, Josh, he sort of put to bed the fact that he can't shoot. This year, he's been exceptional from the three-point line. So he has gotten a whole lot better. But but with Dyson, he's probably the flip side of that. He's had a really, really rough year from the three-point line. So when you think of what the team's going to need, and this is a long way out, but I think that Bryce would be, if you had to prioritize, his skill sets would be more of a priority.
Another American who is not an Australian, but sometimes thinks he is Will Weaver, and he's just signed with the Bullets.
Yeah.
I'm big on it. I think it's a great decision from Brisbane. What's your thoughts on that? And will it help him get back on track?
Yeah, he's got a long history with Australia, of course, with an assistant coach with the Boomers and with the Sydney Kings. He's gone off and done some other things since his time with the Kings, played in Europe, been an assistant as well. So I don't know what he's been doing recently, but clearly it's an advantage when you have someone that has had experience, and in his case, relatively recent experience in the league. And I think that from the outside looking in, it seemed like he was big on culture, big on building the right type of personality for your team and bringing in the right personalities in order for that to work. And it seems like Brisbane are crying out for that. Now, I just hope, I don't know what their structure is and how they do business. But I think if you're going to bring in someone like Will Weaver, you basically got to hand him the keys. Yeah. You got to let him pick his team. You got to let him pick his assistants. You got to let him build his staff. You've got to put a lot of faith in him. But you know, and like everything, there's pros and cons to that as well. But right now, given their recent history, I think that that's just as big a part of the decision making. One is to appoint him, and he's a great coach in the coaching side of things. But I think that with his history, that he should be in charge of making decisions beyond just what the X's and O's and what's going on out on the floor.
You mentioned just quickly. You mentioned Jase's favorite word, by the way, Gazy, culture. He absolutely loves that word.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's sometimes misused and sometimes can be seen as an explanation when it really isn't. You know, but it's a common word in sport and particularly team sports. But when it's used in the right way, it is really, really important. But it's amazing when winning teams, they say, oh, they got a great culture. That's not necessarily the case. There's some winning teams that got great talent. They might have shitty culture and great talent. And by the same token, there can be some teams that aren't winning that have a great culture, but they just got no skill. So you know that the whole culture thing can be a bit overblown, but there is no doubt it is very important.
And he said everything that I think, so I don't even need to talk on it because that's exactly. And where I get it from is my dad, and where Dad probably got it from was Drew's dad. So it all gets passed down.
It's filtered through the system.
Honestly, what do you think? Like, so Brisbane have struggled for a few years. Cairns, things didn't go their way with injury, but some of those teams that find themselves on the bottom consistently, what is the biggest issues for those clubs and how can they change it? I think part of the reason is every year the league's pretty good across the board. So someone's going to have to lose.
Yep.
But how do those teams down the bottom make that jump to say, well, now we're in a play-in and now we're in a final series?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it comes down to talent. There is a baseline of talent that you need in order to be competitive. Now, fortunately, in the NBL, it's pretty good amongst most teams, even our weaker teams as far as performance. they still have some decent talent. But for the bottom teams, if you look at Cairns and Brisbane, there's that balance between what your imports can bring to you as well as your Australians, which that don't always get it right. There's that balance for, well, how is this league played? What are the common denominators amongst this league that you need in order to have success? And sometimes you can go out and get talent, but it's not specific to the conditions here. So it's there's a whole lot of that, and I think unlike a lot of leagues, and I'd include the NBA in this conversation as well, coaching is more significant in our league than it is in some other leagues. Now, it's not the be all and end all, of course, but and coaching is important in every league. Don't get me wrong, but in certain leagues, that it is more important. And I think here in Australia, getting your coach, your coach, your CEO, you get those two things right, then you're heading in the right direction. And you give a coach and a CEO a bit of time, they will be able to develop a program that may not win it, but can become a highly competitive team.
Braden, asking Drew these questions has actually been great because it's making me realize in my head that I am along the right path of thinking.
I was going to say, it's echoing a lot of stuff he said, Drew. So.
Oh, good. Hey, there's no right or wrong way, by the way.
No.
One thing I have learned is that there is a lot of different ways you can approach things, but certainly through my experiences playing here and overseas, and you get older, you do recognize some common denominators that seem to be consistent among successful teams.
I've gotten bigger as I've got older, Drew, on just things that make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, what are we doing?
Hey, you know what? I can see a podcast right there. Jason Cadee, things that make sense.
Drew, I don't think we want to see Jase anymore. We've seen him on this. We've seen him on NBL commentary,
honestly.
Step 1 ads. I think that's
But he's
enough.
a rational, pragmatic fella, and I think he could bring a bit of common sense to the conversation.
Things that make sense. We'll work on that, Drew. We'll work on that. Let's move on to the finals games. You did the first one, the Adelaide Southeast Melbourne, and I think we'll get into all of them, but both games have been excellent.
Yeah.
And a lot of people probably thought Southeast, and even me to a T, thought maybe Southeast was going to come out and win game one because Adelaide had been on a bit of a slide. Now, you were there. You were part of the game. What did you think of it, and did it surprise you?
Not really, because before the game, I was actually one of the few that tipped Adelaide, and I tipped, and it's there on the record on SEN. I tipped Adelaide by 7 points and Bryce to have 30 plus. Now he outdid that. He had 42. But the thing that probably surprised me a little bit, and Phoenix will go back and look at the tape and how they were attacking Bryce, how they were going to guard Bryce, and they made a number of changes personnel wise. They threw different bodies at him. But strategically, I didn't see the blitzing. I didn't see a lot of other typical strategies that you might throw at him. But I can understand why, because they were. It was such a small margin, and you can go through it and you think, oh well, we Bryce is having a night out, but we're okay here. We're battling through. Offensively, we'll eventually get it going, but unfortunately, they just didn't. Sobey, I think, was 9 of 27 between, I think he was.
Him and Clark were 4 for 20 or something, or whatever it
4
was.
for 21 from the 3-point line.
Yeah.
And the 3 ball's been their calling card all season. And, they made some adjustments and were able to, try and get a bit more heat on the rim. I thought Angus Glover, it was interesting what they did with him in the fourth quarter. And I said it during the commentary. Angus they got behind and they needed scoring, and they took him out of the game, and he was actually on fire. I think what did he end up 5 of 8 or something? Whatever it was. But so they will go back and have a look at that, and it's not a criticism of Josh King in any stretch, because we've all well, you've been in that situation before, and there's a really small margin, bit of a lead. It was back and forth, and you're thinking, if we can just get our offense going, we're going to be okay. But unfortunately for them, that wasn't the case. Rakocevic was huge. Rakocevic was a big part of that win. Obviously, Bryce, without him, they don't win. But you could say the same with Rakocevic. And DJ came on and made some timely baskets as well. So that they shot 56% from the field, which is outstanding in a playoff game. Can they do that again? Will Phoenix shoot so poorly from the three-point line again? It's still very much an even contest.
What needs to change in game 2, and what are you expecting?
Well, I'm expecting they might have a look at doing a few different things with Bryce. You just can't take that philosophy where Bryce is getting his, and then we just got to, as long as we take care of everyone else, it's not going to be enough. We'll wear him down. Well, it wasn't on both fronts. They did get, and in the first half, the support cast for Bryce, who was it going to be? It was questionable, but eventually it did come. DJ was great. Rakocevic, as we mentioned, was great. So I think that they need to rethink how they're going to play Bryce, and then just offensively, just finding that balance. It's that they lead the league in 3-point field goal attempts. They've averaged more 3-point field goal attempts than any other team in the history of the league, and that includes the 48-minute era, if you don't mind. So they're letting it fly, but in the playoffs, and they do, you got to find that balance. You got to find that balance. What happens? What's our plan B if they're not dropping? Do we just continue to blaze away? Well, you will continue to blaze away with the open shots and the good shots, but those. And I think Sobey fell in that category a little bit. He started to take a few that when things are going well, we don't mind that shot. When you're feeling it and you're knocking it down, but there'd be a few of those shots that he had that you might rethink. And it's very, very small margins, and you're not going to be able to change a whole lot in that short period of time anyway.
Going across the other series, Sydney got away with one. I think Perth missed a real opportunity to steal game 1. What did you make of that game?
Yeah, it's a great. I really enjoyed the game. It was up and down, really physical. And I'll say this: there's a lot of criticism of the officials, but both those games were two of the really tough games to officiate because of the way that the teams are playing and the physicality of it all, and finding that balance, which we want to see. But I thought Sydney were lucky. They were lucky. They got some timely performances at the right time. Xavier Cooks was spectacular down the stretch. One, because he made free throws, and we think, well, free throws. But they looked like, no, there's something a bit different about the timing of his stroke. It looked good. They went to him on that pick and roll, big and one. Whether it was an and one, I'm not sure. But he came up big in that crisis. And, of course, Kendrick, 35 points, he 10 of 15. Now, he did work his way to the free throw line. But Sydney are tough because they play at that breakneck speed. They really put so much pressure on your defensive transition. And by and large, I think Perth handled that well. Doolittle was great. The biggest concern I have right now, Windler did not look good on that last play.
No,
if Dylan Windler's not there, I think that's just too many blows that they've had to deal with, and it's going to be really, really tough for him. But if he comes up and he can play and play well, there's no reason to think why Perth can't get a win at home. I thought they found a really nice tempo, and it took away some of the stuff that Sydney had been doing. It did take some of that stuff away from them and gave them a better chance. It gave the better chance for the Wildcats to do better on the defensive transition.
What are your thoughts on what Gorge has been able to do with KD this year?
Yeah, well, for all the things we heard about him, and you won't tell us, but I know you know, but I know you wouldn't tell us exactly what you think, I'm sure. But and who knows what was right, what was wrong. You had a funky season last year with some incredible personalities, which would have made it a challenge for the group. But the accusation and the narrative was that, that Cadee is high maintenance. But I think Brian has done a great job of basically handing the keys to the car to him.
Yeah.
But still having enough restraint for him to appreciate and buy in to how he's got to include others. So I think it's been a masterful coaching job based on what we'd all heard about KD. And I don't know KD well, but all my conversations where every time I've spoken to him, any interaction I've had with him, he's been nothing but respectful, nothing but nice. And I like to think that I guess that if that's the real KD, then you could see why he's having so much success at Sydney.
Who have you got in the grand final and who wins it?
Well, I've got Sydney, and I've got Sydney winning it all. But I think that both Adelaide and Phoenix are dangerous for different reasons. Adelaide, because they've got the cheat code in Bryce Cotton. Now, the only thing about that is that if you go back and look at the season, Sydney did a terrific job on him, held him to 7 points in the earlier game. They just said, hey, someone else has got to beat us. I commentated that game. They blitzed him, they double-teed him, and they were spectacularly good on the rotations. When you're blitzing,
they fly around.
Yeah. When you're blitzing, how you pre-rotate to take away that first pass so it makes the catch-up a lot easier. It's not easy to do, and they did it incredibly well in that game. They've tried it and had sometimes not as much success in the ones. The game in Canberra, I think it was, that was one Adelaide probably should have won. So it's either Phoenix or Adelaide would give him some trouble, but I think ultimately right now, they tell me John Brown's healthy. We saw him at the end of that game have a slip. They say he's healthy, but I think that probably if there's a few niggles or anything, then you'd say advantage Adelaide 36ers, but who knows? That one's a toss of a coin.
In a team a bit closer to your home, bit of history in terms of it used to be a Tigers, now it's United. There's talk of some changes going on there. Do you think they need a bit of a circuit breaker?
I don't think so. We saw earlier on, which I won't say it's fool's gold, but it was one where they came out of the blocks and were playing really well early. They get to 9-0. It took a while for the rest of the team to figure out how they're going to guard, in particular, their imports. And they had some issues with Chris, with injuries. I don't think that they're miles away from it. The rumor has it that the Dean might be taking offers over in Asia and in particular Japan. My understanding, he's still got a couple of years to run on his contract, so it would need to be a highly motivated team in Japan that's perhaps prepared to pay Melbourne to get out of it. But no, Dean's had these periods before, and he's really good at rejuvenating that team.
Yeah.
Remember that a few years ago they had the kid Long, was it Long? Sean Long, was it?
Sean Long, and they had
Sean Long and the guard that
Mello Trimble.
Yeah. And they didn't have a good year. There was similarities to that team to what we saw, I think, this season. So, and he was very quickly was able to identify the problems and fix them. So I think that if he is there, history shows that they'll be able to turn that around pretty quickly.
That was when they really shifted to going basically all Australians with one import. That's basically when they shifted that needle to going, you know what? I think they went, was Jack White there that year, or he came in the year after, and they kind of went that route?
Coming in, yeah.
Hey, Drewy and Jase, I want to ask you about another question to do with sort of the coaching and system in Australia. As two shooters, and in particular you, Drewy, I want to get both your opinions on this. Being involved at the junior level and everything, back in the day, Australia was known for having shooters. Now, that's probably died off a little bit. And as someone who's involved at the junior level and that, I see it as a little bit of a an issue. What are your thoughts on, are we teaching enough shooting? Is it a bit of a problem coming through in Australian basketball? And what can we do about it?
Well, you look at both the privately with private coaches that are out there, and you look at what the state associations and the National Federation is doing. Then a lot of time and resources are being put into it. But I think for me that some of the basics are being neglected. When I go and if I'm at a venue and I see these guys coaching and I see 20 cones out in the court and I'm seeing them, listen, you're going to come down here through the legs, behind the back, step, like, cry. They're marvels. You know, the ball handling and all that is impressive. And that's very much part of it. And when you think of the way the game's played these days, it's an important skill set to have. But there's a finite time that you can spend doing certain things. And the amount of time and energy that you have to put in just your technique, and then combining that with repetition and just getting shots up, finding the balance is important. And I think not enough time is spent purely on technique as opposed to creating the shot. I see a lot of people working about ways to create the shot, and they'll figure it out what they got to do once they get there, and perhaps they figure what's near enough, so we'll just train enough, and eventually it'll start to go in. Well, and in some cases that might be true, but I think doing the absolute basic fundamentals is important. And I see different people and I read a lot of things and I'm really curious about the game. And right now there is a common theme that when you're practicing, catch and shoot, spot shooting is not the best way to maximize your time, because they say it's unrealistic. It's not game. It's not game tempo, all those types of things. I personally disagree with that, but I'm on an island these days. So
hey, I'm on that island with you, Drew.
I'm on that island with both of you. Don't worry.
So there's different ways to do it. I think the way the 3-point shot has become so critical, it's almost these days, no matter what size you are, you need to be able to shoot it. But I'm very much old school, and very few people these days would agree with me on how you should play. And that's okay. I do not take offense at all, because I don't disagree with what others are saying. I'm saying there is many ways to do it. And I'm still a believer, particularly at the juniors. They say, let them play. Just go out there and don't inhibit it. Don't give anyone a position. Just let them read and react. Let them do their thing. And
no,
self-discovery is
maybe in local comp.
You're stymieing their development by placing them in a pigeonhole. Now, I do not agree with that, but I don't disagree that can be helpful as well. So I've been accused of sitting on the fence, but all I'm saying is I don't disagree with you. But if you're going to come and play for me, or I'm teaching you, I'm going to teach you in a different way.
I can't answer it any better than what Drew said. I think, like I always tell people, if you're going to come work out with me, we're just going to do basics. Yeah, we'll get to some advanced stuff, but the better players are the guys who know the basics. And even shooting, everyone teaches all these different. There's beef. I don't know what the acronym, whatever that stands for. There's all these different things.
Elbow,
right?
follow through.
I always say to people, and this comes from my dad. Dad said to me, "I've never seen a good shooter have bad footwork or a bad follow through."
Yep.
And he said, I've seen good shooters have a weird technique. He goes, Shane Hill used to shoot it behind his head. Derek Rucker.
Yeah.
But he goes, all those guys, he references Drewy's,
Yeah.
but as in Drewy's shot was more prettier than those guys. But they all, what they have in common, good footwork and a good follow through. And so I'm always big on, as I've got through my years, I can now catch it dead footed. I can catch it right, left. I can catch it left, right. I can catch it high, keep it high. But if you said to Jason, you said, Jase, walk out in the court and shoot, you would watch me do left, right, left, right, left, right, because that's my home base.
Yeah.
And I think as a shooter, you have to have a home base. But then over the course of a game, you can go to different ways. But I guarantee you're going to shoot the bad one night. And what do you go back to? And if you don't have a home base, you don't know where you're going back to. And it's harder to get that going again. So I'm big on basics. And I think we try and, to Drewy's point, we try and master all this other stuff, which unfortunately, as you get older and you play at higher levels, you don't get a chance to do all the fancy shit.
I know.
You better know how to do the basic things well. And if you get good enough that you can do the basic things well and then earn your right to do the fancy stuff, that's different. But a lot of people only get the chance to show the basics. And if you can't do that, guess what? You'll never get to show all your fancy shit.
Couldn't agree with you more. And you know, I know we're speaking about juniors and junior trainers and that, but the one thing that kills me now is seeing seniors train with private trainers who are catch and shoot guys in a game, or that's their role, and they're out there doing 18 dribble combos and everything. That sort of stuff absolutely kills me. How many times do you dribble in a game? 3 times? Well, you've dribbled more than that in one drill. But anyway, we'll move on for that. Just a couple of quick ones for you, Gazy. First one, an image of you went a little bit viral recently while you were commentating and had a little bo peep at the old the footy on the sidelines. What were your thoughts? Did you see how many people were talking about that, or?
No, I did not. No, that would have been opening night of the AFL. What happened was Felix is he's a fanatical Sydney Swans fan.
That's right.
So unlike it is during the finals, we don't do the pregame. So we were watching the game. We had it on before the game was started, and I don't really look at it. It must have just been left on. I didn't.
I was actually more impressed with your ability to multitask.
No, you know me, Jake. I cannot multitask at all.
That's what I was thinking.
I cannot do that at all. So no, I wasn't. No, I wasn't aware of that. I don't know how would ever. I guess someone must have sitting behind me might have seen the thing on. No, I didn't. Hey, you know what? I don't. Was it complimentary that it might have been there?
There were just some jokes and everything. It was pretty funny, to be honest. But
I did not see it. I'm not big on that. I do, because of my job on radio. I do look at social, but I don't really. I'm not on social media.
That's probably a good tactic, Gazy.
I don't see it, but that's okay. Yeah.
I've got this one, and then I'm going to ask you about Josh Giddey after. But just quickly, I know you're coaching at NBL 1 level. Any thoughts on coaching again? The other question I'll ask is, do people still talk to you about your legendary press conferences when you were the Sydney Kings coach? Because those post-game presses were stuff of legend back then, especially the drinking water one, the skull and that, and then the Andrew Bogut description of his hellacious dunk is some of all-time moments.
Yeah. No, I don't hear too much of that anymore. Most people these days, people move on really quickly. Most people don't even remember me being the Sydney Kings coach. But they were great times. I've got nothing but fond memories of those times. It was, a new era with the Kings. Jason was there the year before, and I think they'd won 4 or 5 games. And just to go into that situation with a new owner, to be part of that process, I think the general consensus is that I was a lousy coach, and that's okay. I don't like I said at the start of this, I've had that many accolades. You could put shit on me for the rest of your life, and you're not going to have enough. I'm not going to live long enough for me to get to a point where I go, oh, geez, this is starting to affect me now. But no, I learned a lot in that experiences. Those experiences, I had great fun. I have nothing but fond memories of that time. And we we left the last season we had when we had Bogues, we went 18-10. Most people would see, including some of the players, would see that season as a failure. But I was happy with the way I was able to contribute. Disappointed we weren't able to do better, but I've got nothing but fond memories of those times.
Drewy, one of the things that no one talks about too, that year you took over, we didn't have a piece which probably would have helped us potentially play a little deeper into that season, and that was Julian Kazoo.
Yeah, that was. Now the biggest part of that is that he kept. We all thought that he was going to be.
Yeah, we thought he was coming back.
And we held out, and unfortunately he wasn't able to get healthy. And for him, he wasn't to know it at the time, but it was, he was never able to play again. So, but that's all part of it. Everyone has those challenges when you're with a team, and yeah, I loved every minute of it. I've got great memories of that time, and the relationships you build, the friendships. There's a lot of players that came through that I'd like to think they might think, geez, you're a shitty coach or whatever, but most of them still have built very good, fond relationships with.
Braden, one of my greatest memories was actually I spent more time with Drury and Copes than I probably did the team, because the moment we got on a road trip and got in the lounge, us three would go play cards. We'd land and we'd go play cards again.
They were great.
It was a constant battle.
It was. It certainly was. And then the second when Jerome came along, he was a bit of a card man as well. So he got stuck into it. But they're the things you remember. People don't see, that's not part of what the fans experience, but it's certainly part of being in a group and having fun and building relationships.
Last question, Drewy, on someone you know very well. Josh Giddey moves to Chicago Bulls after that trade from OKC. There were some questions around how they were going to build around him, where they're going to extend him. They extended him with all the trades they made. It seems like they're all in on building around him, and he's achieving some records. He just tied Michael Jordan for on the all-time triple-double list. He's just passed Scottie Pippen for the second most all-time in a Bulls uniform. You must be really proud watching what he's doing in the NBA.
Yeah, it is. I mean, all the Australian guys, I got league pass, so when I'm flicking around and you got all those multiple games on any particular day, I'm just hunting for the Aussies and seeing how they're doing, because you can relate to it. You can see, and you like to follow the experiences they're going through. But Josh has just been incredible, the way in which he's been able to adapt, continually improve. The three ball has been incredible, the way in which he's been able to build on that. And I think it's also reflective of the work that he does. The amount of work it takes in order to do it. Technique is important, but becoming a good shooter is labor intensive. It can be laborious, and it can be one that the difference between the great ones and the good ones is just work. It's just hours you put in. They might have two people that have very similar techniques. The person that's going to put that extra work in is the one that's generally going to get the better results. And I think Giddey falls in that category. He just puts in the work. And it's ridiculous to think that here is Josh Giddey, and it's different for me because I've known him since he came out of the womb. He's just and being there his whole. I remember him as a smart ass, cheeky little kid, and now seeing him now. So it's a little different for me as the way in which I watch him, but never in your wildest dreams, you think of how it all could pan out in a good way. Who would have ever thought that he's having his records compared to Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan? I mean, that is just hard to fathom how that would be the case. So he is, he's great. He looks like he's loved by his teammates, and he's going to have a long and by the look of things, successful career. The Chicago Bulls are an interesting one, though. I talk to a lot of people over there, and not all of them speak highly of the management and how in which they're going to build this team. So hopefully they can get some pieces around him, and they can get back to the Chicago Bulls that we all remember.
Absolutely, mate. Well, I can't express how much it means to us to have you on the show, and how awesome it is to chat to you about all things basketball, including the shooting question for me. That was one I had circled as soon as we knew we had it on your show. So really appreciate everything you've done for basketball, of course, but of course coming on the show today, and we look forward to seeing you on the coverage for the rest of the NBL Final Series.
No, I appreciate that. And we've got to get Jase. He's got to, put down the tools at step one and just start to come on on the commentating. And, he's already made $1 bazillion. Surely he could just
I wish
that and come on board and be a bit more available for the commentary, because you're doing a great job, does a great job. But no, looking forward to it, and enjoy the finals, and we'll chat soon.
Welcome back to Cut to the Jase. What a chat that was with the GOAT himself, Andrew Gaze. Always good to hear from him, and just awesome to have someone like that still involved in the basketball in Australia at so many levels. But Jase, we're going to rip straight into our JC 5 points for the week. And your first point, you're going to go to the 6-time MVP. Seems like he gets a mention probably every second week in this segment.
Well, it's hard to not mention him. When everyone's talking and Damon Lowry and everyone you can think of is saying Southeast's going to win in a clean sweep, and Bryce rolls out and says, hang on, I'll get the party started in the first quarter and I'll finish with 42 and a win. So I just thought he looked refreshed. I said it earlier, like the one thing that them finishing top 2, they were the biggest benefit of the lot, because it gave him a rest, and he looked it. And for them now, they set themselves up where they're just going to win 1 game from 2 to make a grand final series. So we all know it starts with him, but the one thing that happened the other night, which is needed, if they're going to win the whole thing, it was Rakocevic, it was Cheatham, it was DJ, it was all people kind of filling in. And I think that's a sign of a team that could win a championship.
Yeah, and Bryce gave a shout out to someone we'd mentioned on this podcast before in the post game. Gave a shout out to Matt Kenyon's defense and what he did as well. So plenty of support there for Bryce despite his 42 points. Second point, you're going to go to the guy who almost beat him for MVP, and that's Kendrick Davis.
Funnily enough, the 2 best players all year, the 2 first points, because first round of the semis opening game, and we said that Sydney maybe got away with one, but at the end of the day, they still deserve to win. And a big reason was him. I thought he just was efficient. He did what he wanted. I think Perth are going to maybe have to think about how they defend him, just because he finished 10 of 15. And that's probably too efficient if you want to beat a Sydney team. So Cadee still doing his thing, and he came out and played the right way and helped him get game 1.
I wrote in our match report on basketball.com, I thought the masterstroke from Gorge, especially in the second half, was using him off the ball, and he was really hard. He got, whoever his defender was in chasing situations, and it was just all over from there. So some great moves there from Coach Brian Gorge. And the third point, we've already spoken about them a little bit, is the Brisbane Bullets.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to it. I think they made a really good decision. I was really nervous about who they were going to go with. And
especially when it went cold there for a second, because we heard Will and then it went cold for a while.
It went cold, so I was like, where's this going? And as I said, I know he's one of my best mates, but I think Anthony Petrie is someone that could have fit right in. And yes, it would have been a risk as a rookie coach, but it wouldn't have been a rookie person taking over that job. But to go and get Will Weaver, I think is the right move. I think to give him, if they are giving him control, I think is the right move. And I think now Brisbane can start let's put together a 3-year plan of what is this going to look like, starting from, this is now your year 1. This is year 1 under Will Weaver. Let's start moving forward and actually making some decisions that make sense and help that ball club get back to being what everyone ultimately wants it to be, those who have been around. And that's a very good team that people want to go and watch.
Yeah, agree. And it'd be interesting to see what he does with staff and everything. Jase, might be a thing where maybe they can slide Peach in there as an assistant. He'd be great, and especially to learn, some other stuff off Will Weaver as well. So we'll wait to see what happens with that. But number 4, you're going to go to another guy we just spoke to Drewy about, and that's Josh Giddey.
Yeah, I just Drewy summed it up, so I don't need to say any more off the back of Drewy. But I do think, like, in his short time, he's now equaled MJ for triple doubles. At Chicago alone, he's already in second. He's overtook Scottie Pippen. So I just think for Josh, yeah, mate, the world is his oyster. How he's playing, his three ball, as Drewy said, has now started to come into play. Like, he's really becoming just an all-star caliber player. Whether he makes that all-star team or not, he is that as a basketball player.
And just on that, with tying Michael Jordan had 28 triple doubles in his career, and that's across more than 1,200 games. Josh Giddey got there in 323, so he's got a lot of room left. And the highest Aussie on the list is Ben Simmons at 33 triple doubles, so I'm sure he'll go past Ben Simmons soon as well. And fifth point, something we sort of both want to talk about. We spoke to Drewy a little bit about it. What's Melbourne United's situation at the moment?
Well, Drewy summed up the situation well if Dean Vickerman is still there, because Dino is excellent, as I've said, arguably, if not the best coach in the NBL, and has been for a period of time. It's more if he's not there. If the rumors are true, and the rumor mill, sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire, and Dino's got some offers to go overseas, and maybe Melbourne are happy to do that. Maybe they think there's a change needed. I don't know, but I feel like this year was magnified because they sat on top and then it just dropped right off. They had Shea out for basically the whole season. Like, even in the final, he played like 6 minutes. They've got some things to work out, and what does it look like? If it's not Dino, who is it? Is it a rebuild? I don't know. You've got your own opinion, but for me, I just think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Oh, well, I think if there is a change with the coaching staff, I don't think Melbourne traditionally are a rebuild type of club, or a, try a first-time head coach type of club. I think they're a club that always wants to strive for championships. And, we've seen so many articles from Code Sports and the like about Trevor Gleeson wanting to come back. It's probably one of the few clubs that can afford him, to be honest, if Dino chooses to go on. So it'll be interesting to see with that. I could see Trev going there, Jase, if that's a possibility.
If he really wants to come back, I think ultimately Trev's probably in a position where it's got to have a dollar sign that he wants in front of it for him to do it, and he probably want similar to what Brisbane's given Weaver control of the roster. Yeah, look, he's one of the names for sure, but it's whether a lot of people want to come back, but they want what they're making somewhere else, and sometimes that doesn't work out.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's all we have time for through JC 5 points for the round. All we have time for today on Cut to the Jase. Of course, thanks to Andrew Gaze for his time. And of course, thanks to you, Jase. A big weekend in the NBL with Game 2 semifinals on Saturday. And of course, the Opals continuing their World Cup qualifying tournament in Turkey as well. So that's all we have time for today. We'll catch you next week.